Oh my God, I just totally got catfished. He looks absolutely nothing like his picture.
So I found out the guy that I've been dating is married with kids. His wife just reached out to me.
Welcome to the meat market. The single scene is a slaughterhouse, and we are here to devour it. We are your hosts. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Jess.
And today's sizzling single is Princeton. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you have a very heartbreaking, rough upbringing in childhood that did end with a happy ending. But tell us about your journey and how you took your life from a negative to a positive, like Pitbull.
I like that.
I had to bring in
Made
that
me want to dance for a moment.
She's seen Pitbull in concert like more times than is
like
like any adult
I'm
should.
obsessed.
I love it. So yeah, I mean, I have a story like many of you out there. Growing up, abused, molested, struggled with deep depression, medicated because I was quote unquote hyperactive, ADHD, all the stuff, the labels. And I went through a lot as a kid. And though it's a long story, I'm grateful for all of it because, it led me on a path of transformation, or as I say now, evolution. And I realized that everything that happened to me actually happened for me, but it eventually led me through, the story of gangs and drugs and, really just living a promiscuous lifestyle. I was so disconnected from myself because early on in my life, I learned how to wear masks really well. And so I fragmented this persona that, the world knew as Princeton, my mom, my friends, my girlfriends, whoever, everybody saw a different mask. But it wasn't until, I got married at the age of 21. And I don't know how much of the story you guys want. It's a long one, so I'm trying to condense it right now. But after a while, just living a very reckless lifestyle, gang-related activities, selling drugs, using drugs, alcoholic before the age of 21. I got married at the age of 21 thinking, I'm going to give my family, I want to get married. I want to have kids. I've always been a relationship person. I've always wanted a family because I grew up in a big family. But I say, like a lot of people, I went into it for the wrong reasons, because it was kind of selfish. Like, I want to go in and I want to give my family something I've never experienced, and now looking back on it, it's like, dang, like that's crazy. But that's what a lot of us do. We jump into things because we really want to create a new experience, but we don't take time to slow down and really, observe within ourselves if we're even prepared to create that experience, either with ourselves or for our children or with a significant other, what have you. But after 3 years of being married, we had a huge trauma bond. And of course, that's another hindsight 2020 type situation. But her father had committed suicide when she was 11. And I went through molestation and abuse when I was 11. So there was just a lot there. But all of that, as you can imagine, came to a head when you have two people who've experienced a lot of trauma, never really known themselves, never really met themselves, very good at masking, come under one roof. And now we're in each other's space every single day. And all of that stuff combined over 3 years just led me to a point. I had 2 kids at the time, one on the way, 23 going on 24. And I just felt like I was worthless. Like, what's the point? My kids will be better off without me. She'll be better off without me. My family won't have to worry about me anymore. I'm just tired. And it sounds crazy, but that night, I decided to take my life, and I had such a sense of peace.
Really?
It was such a sense of peace. Like, even though I was feeling all of these things, as I'm thinking through how much better everybody else is going to be when I'm gone, it gave me peace. And so I'm sitting there, my gun's in the seat, and I just pick my gun up, one breath, put the gun to my head and pull the trigger, and the gun misfired. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, it misfired?
Yeah.
How did you react to that?
Well, it felt like from the top of my head, when you get really angry and your ears and face get really hot, from the top of my head all the way to the bottoms of my feet, everything got hot. And I'm sitting in my car and just thinking on like what just happened. And I don't know how long I sat there, but it was like, it really is true. Like, your entire life, in a sense, flashes before your eyes. You're thinking about everything that has happened, everything. Because at that point, I'm like, I just tried to take my life and you won't even let me leave. What am I supposed to do? And I remember this epiphany dropped in, and I couldn't articulate it this way then, but this epiphany dropped in, and it was, you aren't where you are because of what happened to you. You're where you are because of how you chose to respond to it. And
that's smart.
yeah, and that one revelation changed my life, because I looked at my life and I said, well, if I could create the mess of a life that I don't love by living like I don't give a damn, how much more of a life can I create if I truly start living like I love myself? Because even taking my life, I wasn't doing that for me. I was doing it for everybody else.
You were thinking they'd all be better off without me. You weren't thinking, what's going on in my life, causing me to feel like this.
I gotten so used to wearing the masks that, when you get used to wearing masks, you don't realize that you're living to perform for the world. You're doing everything for everyone, no matter what your words are.
Yeah.
And so even in that moment, it was a mask.
So what changes did you make moving forward?
Oh, that week, it was a powerful change. I always say I went through a huge conscious awakening at that point in my life. I quit drinking cold turkey. I quit using drugs cold turkey.
Like right away?
Right away that week.
Wow.
And I just isolated myself for over a year. And growing up in the Bible Belt of Virginia, I didn't know what was happening. It was such a powerful shift in my life. Literally, it's like waking up one day, looking in the mirror, and I didn't see Princeton anymore. It was like this blank slate in front of me, and there was nothing but air and opportunity. Like literally, when people talk about rock bottom and only being able to look up, that's where I was. And so I said, well, if I'm going to build up, I can't repeat what just happened. And so I isolated for a year, dove back into the Bible, and really I was seeking other people who had experiences like that. I wasn't seeking religion. I was seeking, because that was the only avenue that I knew at the time, other people who had spiritual experiences that were like mine, where they went through these powerful shifts in their life and it led them to find purpose. And as I started studying all those stories, what really shifted my life was when I got into the New Testament and I'm studying in the story of Jesus. And, at one point he's hanging on the cross after being beaten beyond recognition, going through pain that I could never even imagine, flesh torn from his body, nails, he's nailed to the cross, and he's looking out over people and he says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And I remember reading that and I broke down into tears and I said, teach me to love like that, because if I can't love like that, I don't want to live. And so from that day, I was so hungry and there was such a deep state of urgency. I always say I'm not a quote unquote title, a Christian or a name or a religion. Love is my religion, if I put it on anything, because from that day, I started looking at every challenge, every obstacle, everything as an opportunity to love, whether it's loving myself, giving gratitude and love for my life or different situations, because I really wanted to know that love. And it transformed everything in my life.
And how did it change your relationship with your wife at the time? Because you said her father had committed suicide.
Yeah.
So how did your suicide attempt? You sort of probably re-triggered some of her trauma as well. So is that sort of when that relationship started to falter?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't tell everybody that I tried to kill myself.
Okay.
That didn't come out till much later. They
So
knew that I had an experience, but that was it. But what was triggering and what made it difficult after my life changed was her father was an elder in a church. And this was a man that would walk miles in the snow to help someone in need, give you the shirt off his back, and he ended up taking his own life. So even with my life changing, I went back to school, got a bachelor's in biblical studies, Eastern religion, and got into ministry. I was in ministry and pastoring for 5 years before stepping down and entering into the work that I do now. And even through all of those changes, I could see the struggle that she had trusting that the change was real or that it meant anything, because the man she loved the most, her best friend, was gone and he took the same path. And so there was a lot of grace given on my behalf through a lot of that. And also taking accountability, for the fact that in many cases I had let her wear the pants. I had become very passive aggressive in my own home. And so when I started growing and I started changing, I started taking on the mantle of what it means to be a whole man, not just a man, this is my home type of man, but a whole man, it was very hard to transition because she came from a family of very strong masculine women who ran the house.
Yeah.
And still very much so that way. But that was really challenging. And then coming out of gangs and drugs and all that stuff, trying to find a good job, because most of my job, growing up in the country, every job is like a temp job, you know? And so you go to this job and then that job, and it just looks like you have a terrible work history. So trying to get a good job when it does come available is very difficult. So that was a battle. Finances hit us hard, you know, during that time. But I had a vision. You know, I knew that with every one thing that I had experienced, there was at least 1 million people out there experiencing just one of those things. And if I could evolve, if I could grow, if I could transform, regardless of what happened with us, everything that I would learn from that point would simply be a light into someone else's life. And so I just stuck to the journey. And here we are.
Everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer. You know, think of how many people you have helped in your journey since, you know? So when did you get divorced? How many years ago?
That was 2011.
Okay.
We moved here 2010. And, you know, initially, that's another story. Initially, I was moving here alone because I was at a point I was like, you know, we're going separate ways. I probably knew 5 years before I actually made that decision that it was over. But I always said, you know, I'm getting married once. Like, I never wanted to see a broken family, but it took me getting to a point where I realized my kids were already living in a broken home. And or an unaligned home, as I say now. You know, we just weren't in alignment anymore. We were going in two completely different directions. And the last conversation we had, 2011, was, I love you enough to let you go.
Aww.
Because I don't want to wake up, you know, 65, 70 years from now wondering what the hell we did with our lives because we settled due to circumstance.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's when it happened, 2011.
And so have you dated much since?
Well, after her, I was single for 3 years, and I would go out and stuff, but I really spent a lot of time to myself during that 3-year period because one thing that I came to realize was after my separation, I knew who Princeton was as a husband. I knew who he was as a father and what I wanted to create for my family. I knew what my vision was and what I wanted to create, but I didn't know Princeton as a single man on his own as an adult because I got married as a kid, basically. No real life experience except for the traumas and the dramas I had experienced. And so I took that time to really start meeting myself again. And it was difficult because talk about separation anxiety, like that started coming up. I hadn't smoked or drank anything in over 8 years. I started smoking and drinking again to mask it. I remember the day sitting in my condo thinking, I never want to feel this pain again. And that lasted for a few months. And I was like, this isn't who I am. It's not who I am. And so for 3 years, I just got back into my studies because I was speaking and teaching, you know, hosting workshops and doing all that stuff prior to moving out here. But I hit pause on all of that after my separation because I have a level of integrity with the work that I do that says if I'm not living it, I'm not going to teach it. Or if I'm experiencing something that I need to do the work through, I don't want to put my energy in front of people because to engage people and work with people is a very sacred space. And I don't take that lightly. And so I spent 3 years on that. And then I met my youngest daughter's mom, Kirsten, and we were together for 9 years. And we broke up for maybe 2 years in that time, but we still lived together. We were roommates, you know, so we were still really close. But go ahead.
Why did that relationship end?
That relationship ended because, well, number one, she was 8 years younger than me. She had really just started growing in the beginning when we first met. And there was just this, I'll admit it, I had this savior complex, you know, because I felt like I could fix in this relationship what I couldn't in my last relationship. And I think a lot of us do that, you know, when we've experienced something, or what I say when we've experienced true love or the love we thought we lost, you know, we try to kind of reclaim that in a way in the next relationship. But there was a lot of growth really early on. And she lived in Seattle at the time. So for 4 months of our relationship, we didn't even see each other other than FaceTime and talking on the phone. And so we built a really solid friendship in the beginning. And then she moved out here. And then, of course, the face-to-face, this is how they are in person. And I realized, okay, we're still in two completely different places. And at one point in the beginning of the relationship, I said, you know, we should take a step back and reevaluate where we are. Not saying we shouldn't be together. But it's like every time I would say that to her, it was like, I moved my whole life out here. But I'm like, I'm not saying not be together. I'm saying take a responsible step back and let's evaluate it. And it was just this, we were butting heads at that moment. And I just kind of, I remember saying, okay, well, let's do it your way. And if it doesn't work, when you finally get ready to do the work, I'm not going to trust it. Because she told me, she said, I don't want to focus. I'm trying to reestablish myself, because she was a salon owner in Seattle. And so she was trying to reestablish her business out here. She was like, I just need to focus on this right now. And I knew that if we put any part of our relationship on the back burner because of what I'd already experienced, then it only takes a little bit of time for the separation to start happening. And I said, if you want to wait until things are comfortable to start focusing on the work, when you finally feel comfortable enough to do it, I'm not going to trust it. And it was my fault, because I take full responsibility of everything that happened in that relationship as the man. Because as the man, I am the foundation, I am the infrastructure. I should be the stability that gives her the peace. So when she comes in, she already has a foundation to stand on, even if she needs to put some things down. And I don't have room to complain about that. And so we literally had an hour-and-a-half conversation the other night. Like I said, we're still friends, but that happened. And then, of course, the space ended up kind of fluctuating between us. And then now I'm looking outside of the relationship where there's no intimacy. I don't trust it, but we're still in it, because now I'm still rebuilding my stuff. We're both entrepreneurs, so finances are really tight. So now I feel trapped. And every day I go home, it's like looking in the mirror of everything that I hate and don't want in my life at the time. But I was the one that was passive aggressive. I was the one that didn't say, okay, this isn't healthy. I was coaching couples, prior to, stopping coaching after my separation. But during that time, we kept growing, and then we broke up, got back together. And then it just got to a point similar to my wife where it was just like, it's clear that we're just in two completely different places. I was so focused on doing the work and evolving that I got to a point, I said, I can't keep stopping. Like, I can't allow that. As much as I love you, I can't. And it was a mutual decision. She was like, I'm just in a space where I just really just need to focus on me.
So now what are you looking for in a relationship? Are you looking to get married again?
Oh, I definitely want to get married again.
And what have you learned from your two relationships? Like, what are your biggest lessons in what you're looking for going forward?
All right, so typically I give a blanket statement. It's not really a soft one, but I say, in my first relationship, I learned unconditional love. In my second relationship, I learned self-love. But in my second relationship, I learned so much more than that, because I learned the responsibility of a man. Because having, the circumstances of being a father, having the title and the roles and being married, I feel like it was kind of deceptive in a way, but being in a relationship where none of that was locking you in or binding, and then being able to look back on that and doing the healing work myself, it's like, wait a minute, like, we look at this word responsibility, and this is something I was telling her the other night. I said, it is a privilege as a man to have the responsibility to build a foundation for my family and those that I love that protects them and keeps them safe. And for a while, because everything was a challenge and everything was a struggle, I felt like everything was a fight, and so it didn't feel like a great thing, to have this responsibility, the weight of the man, the weight of the world on the man, but now I'm just like, what a gift, what a gift I've been given to be a conscious man in this world. And that's probably one of the greatest things I've learned, is just the power and purpose of and the responsibility and the role of being a conscious man.
Yeah. Do you have deal breakers?
I was just going to ask that. Great minds think alike.
I know.
I would say my deal breaker, I try not to put expectations on anyone, but I would say my deal breaker is anyone who really isn't on their journey, who doesn't put personal, professional, spiritual development at the forefront, who doesn't have some sort of practice that takes them deeper, keeps them grounded, and someone who doesn't have a vision for themselves. Because I say, if you have a vision for yourself, and you have a practice that is growing you and evolving you every single day, everything else is trivial as a man, because I'm going to create structure and foundation. I have a vision. So now from here, it's just a matter of, is it in alignment with what I am creating? Because when you come into a union, second thing that is really important to me is, are you capable of seeing a us, we, and our, not a me, my, and I?
I like that.
There can be no ego. So if you come into it, me, my, this is mine and me, and I'm going to do this, no, we're not going to work. But if you can come into it saying, this is what I'm working on, and this has been my vision up until this point, but I'd like to create something with a partner, and this is what that looks like, then as a man, as the infrastructure, I can say, okay, this is what I'm building, and I see how this connects. I see how this aligns. I see the potential of building a partnership, because anybody can have a situationship or relationship.
Yeah.
True. So speaking of partners, what is your ideal partner? Describe her.
Loving, compassionate, open, vulnerable. I'd say my ideal partner mirrors me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Do you have a physical type?
I was going to ask
On the same wavelength today.
I know. Sitting on the same couch, we're like giving each other our brainwaves.
ESP.
Uh-huh.
I'd say someone who is fit, who takes care of themselves, because that tells me the integrity that you have with yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to walk around looking like a supermodel or an Instagram girl. No, like just someone that you take care of yourself. I don't.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
that's a perfect segue
by the
into
bell.
Yeah,
give me more. You ready for it?
I'm ready for it. The Keep More Minute, brought to you by Tactical Tax Strategies. They help you keep more in your wallet. We help you keep more in your relationship. This week's question. I need help before I become the villain in my own love story. My boyfriend is great, sweet, funny, and treats me well, but there is one tiny problem. I cannot stand the way he chews. It's like a symphony of chaos. Every time we eat, no matter how much I try to ignore it, I find myself fantasizing about throwing his dinner out the window. I know breaking up over chewing sounds ridiculous, but if I have to endure one more bowl of cereal, I might actually lose it. Am I overreacting, or is this a legitimate reason to call it quits?
Do you think that there's something else going on and she's looking for reasons?
I don't know. And also, how long have you been dating the guy? Because it's like, if something like that, like for me anyway, something like that would give me the ick on the first date, and I would never agree to a second date. So it's like,
I feel like she's got the ick, and I feel like once you get the ick, you can't get rid of the ick.
No, you
can
can't. No, I can't.
From my past, anyways, once I got the ick, I knew that was the end. It was over.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm a very observant person when I meet someone. So yeah, if there's anything like that in the beginning, because chewing, that's one of those
That is kind
things
of a turn off when they're like,
well, and I'm a teeth person. Like
Yeah.
I like teeth, like bad teeth. Like you can be perfect in every way, but if you have bad teeth, that's a huge turnoff for me. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't be able to do a loud chewer.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if she can talk to him about it and try to get him to change. And then if he doesn't, maybe pull the plug. But I feel like if he does stop doing that, she's going to find something else.
I think so too.
I feel like that's not it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something deeper to this.
Yeah, probably. We don't have enough information to really give good advice on this question.
Well, good luck. So now we're going to discuss an article from the BBC, basically why it's harder to find love nowadays. So it says that finding and keeping love today is harder than it has ever been in human history. One reason is that we have more variations of what is considered an acceptable relationship. You can be monogamous, in a polyamorous relationship, living together, living apart. There's just so many acceptable forms that it makes finding the partner to match your end goal more challenging. And then it says, I found this extremely interesting and very true. We demand more from our partner than ever before. Formerly, in the past, it was someone that wanted kids and someone that could give you security, or someone that could tend to the farm, right? Now, think of how many boxes people want checked. They want, we're searching for everything out of our partner now. We want them to be our intellectual equal. We want them to be the CEO of the business that we launch. We want them to be a great co-parent. We want them to be a phenomenal sex partner. Don't you agree? Now, people are just a little more picky and demanding and expecting more, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas in the olden days, I feel like a woman just wanted security and kids.
Yeah.
Someone to cook dinner for. Then it says, a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed by the opportunities of meeting new people. We fool ourselves into the paradox of choice. We believe that we have endless options, but in actuality, if you download 100 dating apps, how many dates could you actually get out of that? It's kind of true. We think we have all these choices out there, but really, you could find millions of profiles online, but how many would you really want to go on a date with?
Yeah. Have you done the apps? Have you been using the apps for dating?
I can't stand the apps.
No.
I've used them just because I don't go out a lot, and I'm just not really fond of. I'm old school. Like I want to meet someone face to face.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And do you find, I feel like with the apps too, people can be like, going back to that whole like different types of relationships, people can be anything they want to be behind the apps.
Yeah.
So it's like you run into all these, crazy things and things people are looking for that are
and how
totally
many of the apps are fake? There are so many, like you said, bots or OnlyFans models or romance scammers out there just trying to get money. I feel like a lot of them aren't even real. Then it says how many marriages nowadays have a low satisfaction rate as there's people believe that the grass is always greener. It's true. There's so many women on Instagram. A lot of men, I feel, think that there's someone better out there. We also have a lot more knowledge. So you can take an assessment of attachment style online, for example, and figure out whether or not you or your partner are paired in a strong way. This creates doubts about the relationship. People do think the grass is always greener and they can be happier somewhere else. What's that expression? But it's not greener. You just have to water your own grass.
Water your own grass. Yeah.
Concentrate on what you have, not what you could have or what potentially is out there. And I know a lot of people that have ended their marriage or their relationship thinking they're going to find something else better, and they don't, and then they want to go back because they realize what a crappy situation it is to be single nowadays, And then lastly, it says that, there are good and bad ways to present yourself on the dating apps, according to research. And there are a lot of mistakes that people make, which we talked about on the last episode. You have to be honest about what you want and what you're looking for. And then also another big problem is the photos nowadays are atrocious. We all think we look like we did when we were 10 years ago when we took that picture, but we do not. So they don't think they're catfishing, but they actually are catfishing. It's really important that you put a recent picture on there. Then it says you should include some beige flags. I love this. Beige flags are things that some people may perceive as quirky, but you should own them. The author says one beige flag he has is that he likes to play Dungeons and Dragons. And a lot of people might make fun of him for this, but there are those few people that are going to love it. And the fact that he owns that and is confident about it, I think that's pretty great.
I don't know what my beige flag would be. What would your beige flag be? Do you have anything off the top of your head?
No.
I don't know either.
I'd have to put some thought into that.
I know. Mine's probably that I am a perfectionist.
Yeah, OCD.
And a little bit. Yeah. Everything has to be like just so, and everything has to be like in its place, and just everything has to be just right. Like, and I can always do everything. I'm terrible at delegating. So like, I always feel like I can always do things myself better than, and so it's like, I need to like give up my control sometimes. I think that's my beige flag.
I think mine could be, I'm a very passionate person, and I don't really show that even on my social media because I try to stay very professional. I'm not trying, because a lot of my clients are women. And so I'd say 90% of my clients are women. And so I have to be very careful of how I project myself or show myself online, but I'm a very passionate, funny person. And to me, that space is very sacred. Like, I'll be your biggest cheerleader. I'm a clown. I'll chase you through the house. Like, I like doing crazy stuff. But yeah, I don't show that a lot on my profile. It's usually just me chilling. It's calm.
The last thing it says here, which is interesting, is studies have found that the number one determinant as to whether or not they want a second date is whether they feel comfortable being themselves with their partner. It's a big, the big generational differences in dating. In previous generations, I guess, physical attraction now is number 2, but it's not number 1 now. In the past, physical attraction was number 1. That's not number 1 anymore.
I will say one generational difference I've noticed is I grew up in the time when you're phone was attached to the wall. It had a rotary dial and you couldn't go far, and you had to make sure that no one else was using it. And you waited days for a guy to call you. You would run home after school, hoping that the boy that you liked would call you after school that day. And you would talk on the phone. Whereas now everything is text message. Yeah. It's messaging and it's sending photos, and it's I still like to talk on the phone. I still like to engage in real conversation and be able to talk about things in person rather than have these virtual relationships. That is I don't know. That's one big generational difference that I notice.
But I think it can be for the positive too. I met my husband online, but we were talking for about 2 or 3 weeks because he was traveling. So we really got to know each other over text. So when I met him in person for the first time, I felt like I already knew him and he was already my best friend, you know? Mm-hmm. So,
but I will say to that, I feel what you're feeling, because there was just something about when that call finally came. And I was also a letter guy. I would write, I was the 4-page love letter, Jodeci, Jagged Edge. That was me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, Genuine. I was that person, and I miss that. I miss meeting someone and the effort you actually had to put in to get to know them. Yes. And because you couldn't just, hop in someone else's DM or, have your eyes looking in hundreds or thousands of different directions, it meant something when you met someone. Yeah. Even if they weren't everything you wanted, it's because of that time you invested it, you grew in that attraction.
There wasn't, again, endless options, seemingly endless options, I should say, because they're not all obviously viable options, but it seems like they're, and then the access, we have access to each other 100% of the time now. Whereas like you said, back in the day, it was you would sit there and wait for that phone call. And it was so exciting. I remember when we first got a cordless phone, and I would run home from school because I was the oldest child. I would run home from school to beat my brothers, and I'd grab the cordless phone and I would take it up to my bedroom and I would slam the door and I would hoard the cordless phone in my room so that I could answer the phone when it rang.
You weren't as bad as I was, though. We had a phone jack, so we had a basement in our house. We had a phone jack downstairs. So at a certain time, I couldn't talk on the phone. So you know what I did? I went and bought myself a phone. I drilled a hole in the basement floor to my bedroom and took a cord there. So I had my own phone in my room.
That's amazing, actually. The lengths.
I had to get creative.
And that's the thing. The lengths that we would go to back then to date and to meet people and to impress, the person that you're courting, the person that you're, going after. It's just you think about that. And now it's just all you have to do is send a DM.
Yeah.
I remember getting thrills to check the mail. Now it's like a chore because it's all spam. But I remember because I loved writing letters as well and loved receiving them. And it gives you that joy.
I'm pen pals with my 8-year-old niece, and the last letter that she sent me, it had my address obviously on one side, but then on the other side, it said something like, "Open now. This is not a bill. It's something fun."
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So now it's time for the Celebrity Cut, where we marinate in the juices of the celebrity. Did you guys know that Neo is in a polyamorous relationship with not one, not two, not three, but 4 women?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what I read today? What? So I read today that in an interview he said, so this is how he schedules his time with them. Did you hear this too?
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Did you hear this too? So he spends 1 week with each of them individually and then brings them all together for group time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? So every month, so he spends a 1 week with one, 1 week with the other, 1 week with the other, 1 week with the other. And then on week 5, he brings them all together for group time or whatever.
And that's a circle?
And then it goes and then, so then he starts again, right? Week 1, week 2, week 3.
I have so many questions though. I feel first of all, he's got to have a favorite, right? Don't you think?
You would.
You would, right?
I would.
Second of all, I feel there's got to be so much jealousy amongst these girls.
No, he said they all get along.
I wonder if they do stuff together, or is it just him and the girl individually each time, or do they all do things together? Are they bisexual? Again, so many questions.
I don't know.
Because they only give you their perspective. They don't give you the full perspective. And he has money. Like that. Guys out there working to build your business or whatever you're doing. If you're not a millionaire, don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home. 10 out of 10 would not recommend trying this at home.
It would not work.
But it's funny because he had said when he came out with this, he was like, he introduces his pyramid. He calls them his pyramid. And he says, since the world is so intrigued, I guess I should introduce my loves properly. Ladies and gentlemen, I present my pyramid. Christina, they all have nicknames. Pretty Baby, Twin Flame, Phoenix Feather, and Sexy Little Something.
Oh my God. Is he married to one of them? Do you know?
I'm not sure. No.
I have no idea.
Don't know.
He used to be married and then he got divorced and he does have kids with his ex-wife. And I will say he's very honest and open about this. Like he doesn't hide it from his kids. He says they're all his girlfriends. He's very upfront and honest. So good for him.
I mean, what's his name? Nick Cannon is kind of doing something similar because he's got 13 kids by 8 different women or something like that. So it's like you said, if you've got the money for it, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm wondering though, because Neo was saying in an interview that he was raised by all women, like 5 aunts, sisters, his mother. So he grew up surrounded by a bunch of women. So I'm wondering if it's like a childhood thing. Like now he still wants to be surrounded by a bunch of women. I don't know.
Maybe. I personally wouldn't be able to do it.
I personally, as a man, now when I was younger, I've had some experiences in my promiscuous days, but as a conscious man now, it takes enough energy just to truly know one woman. So for me, that just sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
no.
like what we were talking about earlier, like all the boxes to check. Like, how are you filling all of these spaces for each woman? You know what I mean? Like, how are you there for her physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of these different ways
that makes me want to take a breath even as you're going
I
through it.
know, right? Like, how do you decompress from that when you have to be that for 4 different women? That's crazy.
I wonder if they're all like in sync on their periods. So when he has
I'm
them
sure.
all at the same time, he makes sure when I have them all together, no one's PMSing.
There are so many possibilities of what could be going on in that situation.
I know. That's
So
funny.
where do you take a woman out on a first date? Where's your favorite first date spot?
One place that I really like, because it's super chill, is the living room.
I love
yeah.
the living room. I forgot about that place.
Yeah, I love the living room.
the
That's a
living room
great
is nice.
first date
Great
spot.
vibe. The vibe in there is just super nice. Low lighting.
I always talk about lighting. I'm always like, I don't care where we go, but the lights better be dim. I
Yeah.
like a dimly lit space, and they do lighting right there.
They
Yeah.
definitely do.
Yeah.
Now it's time for the juiciest segment of the show, the meat grab. Are you down for the challenge, up for the grab? Willing to share? Pick one if you dare.
I'm down.
Some are innocent, some are not so innocent. Get a good one. We're always so disappointed when it's a vanilla boy.
I know.
one.
What is your perfect
Oh,
weekend?
no. You got to take another one.
Yeah. Give me
that-
something else. I need something spicy. I'm a Sagittarius. Don't hate on me.
Someone didn't mix these up. Me.
Let's see. What's your favorite place on earth?
That's kinda
Another
boring,
vanilla.
too.
Yeah, let's do
well,
another one.
answer it and choose another one. What's your favorite place on earth?
My favorite place on earth is, I don't know. Everything is so great. I'd say
In between a
within
woman's
me.
legs.
You can make it
Nah,
spicy.
that can come with stress sometimes. Yeah. I'm very conscious of what I say. My favorite place is right here with me. Yeah. Right here. Truth. You are on a shopping spree in a sex shop. What do you buy?
Hey, you
I
wanted
could be
the
really
sexy
funny.
one.
Oh, man. What would I buy? I'd say lots of lube because I'm one of those guys.
Ooh, that's
With all the P.
No
Diddy's-
Diddy.
With all the, I was just gonna say that. With all the P. Diddy stuff that's coming out right now, you might want to rethink your answer.
No. I say lots of lube because I'm one of those guys. I hope this isn't TMI, but I'm one of those guys. Like if I'm sexually, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But if I'm with a woman, I'm with one woman, I'm with a partner, I like the fan on. And you know what happens when you have the fan on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I'm like, plenty of lube. I know I'm
dries
going
up.
to use lots of lube. And I like the way the bodies feel when they rub together. So like massages, like I like doing massages. So it'd be a mix of different types of lubes and lotions. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's a wrap. Did you have any more questions?
I don't. I like the note that we've ended on today.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us here this week at the Meat Market. And thank you so much, Princeton. If you want to go on a date with Princeton, send us a message, themeatmarketpodcast.com, or on any of our social media handles at Meat Market Podcast. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Tactical Tax Strategies. If you want to keep more in your wallet this tax season, Tactical Tax Strategies is the place to go. You will definitely save a lot of money. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week at the Meat Market. Oh my God, I just totally got catfished. He looks absolutely nothing like his picture.
So I found out the guy that I've been dating is married with kids. His wife just reached out to me.